Years ago, if you wanted to know something, you would go to the library, find a book, and look up what you needed to know. No one would necessarily know you went to the library, much less what you read while you were there. And the same is true for most things you do. Very few entities know what you did. For example, hanging out with friends, shopping, and other everyday activities.
Today, however, tech companies like Apple, Google, and Facebook provide important services like search. The added convenience has come at a cost to user privacy. For example, an internet search is quick and convenient, but it also allows Google to access the inner workings of your brain, information that ad agencies and others find valuable. At this point, big tech companies might know you better than yourself.
Facebook, for example, recently came under fire for its privacy practices when it was revealed political consultancy Cambridge Analytica had access to data on over 80 million Facebook users without their knowledge. The data included information on users' personalities and social connections, which was then used to target audiences with political ads on the social network.
These types of incidents have generated discussions around the ethics of internet companies. Lawmakers are now asking if online tracking for advertising is dishonest marketing and whether it's ethical to target ads to children. Informed consent to data sharing has been an issue of focus, and we've realized consumers tend to simply trust brands with the expectation their data will remain private.
So how does data collection work? For example, Facebook uses cookies and public IP addresses, infrastructures built into the internet to identify which users, demographics, and devices are logged in as they surf the web. This is just a small sample of data that could be collected. Facebook can then use supervised machine learning algorithms to predict user behaviors and also sell ads.
So, what does privacy look like in our modern connected world? The EU has attempted to answer this question by introducing the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, in May 2018. This legislation stresses the right to the protection of personal data as a fundamental human right and aims to give internet users more control over what data is collected.
It also aims to hold companies accountable for being transparent and ethical in how they use consumer data, requiring them to get explicit consent and to collect consumer information and disclose how it will be used. Technically, this requirement only applies to EU citizens. However, the global nature of tech products means that users everywhere are now being asked to consent to data collection.
Here are some examples of what the GDPR promises. In addition to the right to be informed and the right to access, this regulation allows consumers to request that their firms delete their data, known as the right to erasure. The regulation guarantees significant rights like this, which many companies depend on for their core business model.
Looked at Facebook's recent announcement of its plans to integrate Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp on the back end. Per GDPR, European authorities have the ability to ban data processing operations. So this move is attracting the attention of regulators like the Irish Data Protection Commission, which has asked Facebook for an urgent briefing on the proposal.
Increasing privacy sounds good, but serious questions remain about GDPR's fairness and efficacy. Actually understanding how your data is used online requires technical expertise that the average person lacks, despite regulations to use clear and plain language. But even in plain language, many people do not understand the consequences of consenting to data collection.
Critics also argue that consumers wishing to use tools from big companies with monopolies like Facebook in the social networking market don't have a meaningful choice about whether or not to consent to data collection, as products from these companies might not otherwise work as desired.
Finally, some analyses propose that GDPR unfairly hinders smaller companies relative to the tech giants. The existing market share of big tech companies allows them to disproportionately accumulate user data under GDPR, as future growth may become more difficult. Plus, people prefer that Google has their data and not a smaller, no-name advertising firm.
Plus, smaller companies lack access to lawyers for ensuring compliance and negotiating penalties for breaches. The fines themselves, which also skew towards big tech companies, as organizations can be fined up to 4% of annual global turnover or 20 million euros, whichever is greater, and both of which are more easily paid by companies with billions of dollars cash flow.
In summary, the GDPR presents a step in the right direction to protect the privacy of the average internet consumer. First, it allows us to receive the data we give out to Google, Facebook, and other companies. Also allows us to potentially delete data we do not want to be out there.
However, severe challenges lie ahead. Many young people are now saying, Google knows all about me anyways, I'm an open book. With this culture shift on privacy, future regulators may need to adapt. Ahead, regulators should do 3 things. 1. Become familiar with data collection technology. 2. Think critically about addressing monopolistic practices. And 3. Represent the people, not the companies.